Hey, this is Pastor Ryan. Thanks for joining us for this week's Sunday Preview. Our passage today is Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 through 12. Let's get right into the passage. The passage starts off with a time indicator in three different groups. Then Jesus said to the crowd and to his disciples. Then Jesus references two groups, the scribes and the Pharisees, and he says that they do have a place of authority, Moses' seat. He gives a contrast, though, saying that they should do and observe whatever they tell them, but not the works that they do. He gives a primary reason for this behavior, for they preach, but do not practice. He then gives a number of reasons. They tie up heavy burdens on people's shoulders, they focus on the external, looking to be seen by others, they seek places of honor, and they love to be called by authoritative titles. But here he stops talking about the Pharisees and gives another contrast to his audience again, who are the crowds and the disciples, telling them not to seek out three different titles, rabbi, father, and instructor. And then he gives three reasons, each along the same lines, because they have one teacher, they have one father, and they have one instructor. He then describes a reversal in what his disciples should seek, saying, "The greatest among you shall be your servant," describing a relationship between the greatest and those who serve. And then an inverse relationship, saying, "Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." Now that we've taken a close look at the passage, we want to step back and take some broader observations of the text. First, we see a number of people and groups involved in the text here. Jesus, the crowds, his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees, Moses, others, those who are giving greetings, one teacher, one father, and one instructor. What's going on in this passage? It looks like we see Jesus giving instructions to the crowds, describing the behavior of the Pharisees and the scribes, going on to give counter instructions, and then bases it on a counter set of priorities. When is this taking place? The word "then" is our time indicator, and we see from the context that it's following a set of interactions between the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees and Jesus. Matthew chapter 21 indicates this may be in the temple. And why is this passage here? It could be here to describe actions and symptoms of those who preach without practicing, and a warning against that kind of approach in a relationship to God. It might be here to describe a new set of authorities, a new teacher, father, and instructor. And it might be here to teach a different set of principles for those who wish to follow Jesus' example. And it really might be here to foreshadow how Jesus, being the greatest servant, will also be the most highly exalted, putting into action this principle just described by Jesus. Before we go, we have a few questions for us to think about for this coming Sunday. First, what does it look like to respect someone's teaching while understanding their failures? Is this something that we still have to do today? A question I'm interested in is, why does Jesus take all this time to describe the external actions of the Pharisees, but in his correctives, he only addresses one of those actions, that of seeking out titles? What does he mean by "call no one rabbi, father, or instructor"? Aren't leaders in the church called teachers? How absolute are these prohibitions? I find it interesting that there's three different titles specifically included by Christ, one referencing a father, one referencing the Christ. Does that mean that the teacher is referencing the Holy Spirit? And finally, and most importantly, what does this servant look like? What does it mean to humble yourself? And why is that so important to Jesus' teaching? Thank you for joining us for the Sunday Preview. We hope this spurs on your thinking and prepares you for our time together on Sunday morning. God's blessings on your week.